In a world where everyone's speaking, silence becomes its own language. Picture this: a single person in a dark room, lit only by the pale glow of their phone screen. They scroll endlessly through other lives while their own timeline remains empty. The city hum fades outside, replaced by the quiet buzz of the screen. We live in the weight of unspoken words, in the space between thought and expression. Some carry silence like a warm blanket chosen, peaceful, complete. Others wear it like chains, holding their breath, afraid to disturb the air around them. There are two types of silence in our digital age. One heals, one haunts. Understanding which silence you carry might be the key to finding the courage to breathe again. Behind every empty profile lies a psychology more complex than we imagine. It starts with self-presentational anxiety, the constant awareness of being judged before you even speak. Your mind becomes a courtroom where you're both defendant and prosecutor, arguing cases that haven't even been filed. You take a photo. Your thumb hovers over the post button. Suddenly, every insecurity awakens. What if they think it's stupid? What if no one cares? What if they see through the careful curation to the messy reality underneath? This is rejection sensitivity in action. When you care deeply about connection, that caring can become emotional paralysis. The very thing you want most to be seen and understood becomes the thing you fear most. So you retreat into observation, watching others live the digital lives you're too afraid to claim. Then there's the perfectionism trap. Nothing feels worthy of sharing unless it's flawless. But perfection is the enemy of authenticity, and authenticity is what creates real connection. You end up trapped in an impossible standard, editing your humanity out of existence. You rewrite the caption 3 times, not to sound perfect, but to sound real. Even honesty feels performative when you know it's being watched. Social comparison theory explains why this gets worse online. Algorithms don't just show you content. They show you curated highlights that make your ordinary moments feel inadequate. Everyone else seems funnier, more successful, more photogenic. The comparison game is rigged, but we keep playing anyway. Here's something we rarely acknowledge. Algorithms don't just decide what you see. They slowly decide what you dare to show. The platform learns your hesitations, reinforces your patterns, and gradually shapes what feels possible to express. For highly sensitive people, there's an additional burden, the empathy overload. You feel too much to risk exposure. You absorb the emotions in every comment section, carry the weight of others' reactions, and eventually decide it's safer to feel everything privately than to risk adding to the noise. This creates a peculiar paradox. Rich inner worlds paired with outer world hesitation. You have strong thoughts but a weak voice. Complex ideas that never see daylight. Profound insights that die in draft folders. The draft folder becomes a graveyard of vulnerability posts that felt too real, too honest, too much. Each saved draft represents a moment when courage almost won, but fear pulled you back into the shadows. The algorithmic mirror reflects this pattern back to you. Platforms learn what you're afraid to show and gradually stop suggesting you show anything at all. Your silence teaches the system to expect more silence. The loop tightens until posting feels not just scary, but impossible. What we're really talking about is the gap between who you are and who you think you're allowed to be online. The distance between your authentic self and your digital ghost. This gap grows wider with every post you don't make, every thought you don't share, every moment you choose invisibility over the risk of being seen. But not all silence carries the same weight. There's a profound difference between chosen silence and imposed silence, between the quiet that comes from wholeness and the quiet that comes from hiding. Conscious silence is born from inner completeness. It's the silence of monks who have found peace, of artists who create without needing applause, of people so comfortable in their own skin that they don't need external validation to know they exist. This silence feels full, not empty. It breathes. It chooses when to speak and when to listen. Fearful silence is different. It's born from avoidance, from holding your breath so long you forget how to exhale naturally. It's the silence of suppressed expression, of words that die in your throat before they reach the world. This silence doesn't choose, it hides. How do you know which silence is yours? Ask yourself, does your quiet feel like calm or suffocation? When you scroll through social media without posting, do you feel content or invisible? When others share their thoughts and you don't, does it feel like wisdom or cowardice? Silence can heal, but it can also haunt. At first, it protects you from judgment, criticism, the messy complications of being seen. But slowly, if you're not careful, it starts erasing you, not just from digital spaces, but from your own sense of existing in the world. Identity fragmentation happens when you're never witnessed. Parts of yourself begin to feel unreal because they've never been reflected back through interaction with others. You start to doubt not just your right to speak, but your right to exist in spaces where others gather and connect. The invisibility spiral is insidious. You doubt your right to exist in digital spaces, so you withdraw further. The withdrawal makes you feel more disconnected, which makes posting feel even more impossible. Each day of silence makes the next day's silence feel more necessary, more natural, more permanent. Self-discrepancy theory explains this perfectly. There's who you are, who you show the world, and who you think you should be. When these three versions of yourself are vastly different, the psychological tension becomes unbearable. So you choose the safest option, showing nothing at all. But here's the awakening of self-awareness. Understanding which silence is yours changes everything. Recognition is the first step toward choice. Once you know whether your quiet comes from peace or prison, you can decide what to do about it. If your silence feels like suffocation, there's a way back to your voice, but it doesn't start where you think it does. Begin by creating without publishing. Rediscover the joy of expression without the weight of judgment. Write posts you never share. Record videos you never upload. Take photos that live only on your camera roll. Remember what it feels like to express yourself purely for the sake of expression, not performance. This isn't procrastination, it's rehabilitation. You're rebuilding the muscle of authentic expression that fear has weakened. You're remembering that your thoughts and feelings have value, even when no one else witnesses them. When you're ready to share something, start with deliberate imperfection. Post something raw, unpolished, honest. Not because imperfection is trendy, but because perfection is the enemy of connection. People connect with humanity, not highlight reels. The hardest lesson to learn is separating your self-worth from metrics. Likes aren't love. Comments aren't validation. Silence isn't rejection. The number of hearts on your post has nothing to do with the number of people who care about you in real life. Create ritual, not performance. Maybe it's sharing one honest thing every Sunday. Maybe it's posting a photo without a caption once a week. Maybe it's responding to one person's story instead of just watching silently. Small, consistent acts of visibility matter more than viral moments. Express to connect, not to impress. The goal isn't to amass followers or generate engagement. The goal is to find your people, the ones who see your authentic self and choose to stay. Quality over quantity. Depth over breadth. This creates a beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to be seen by everyone, you start being truly seen by the right people. Being witnessed by fewer people but feeling more real is infinitely better than being followed by thousands who only know your mask. Self-determination theory teaches us the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Post because you have something to say, not because you need something from others. Share because it brings you joy, not because you're seeking validation. The energy behind your expression matters more than the expression itself. Use your voice as a healing mirror. Each time you share something authentic, you're not just communicating with others, you're discovering yourself. You're learning what matters to you, what you think, how you see the world. Expression becomes a tool for self-discovery, not just social connection. Practice gentle courage with yourself. Each small act of sharing is an act of self-tenderness, a way of saying, I matter enough to take up space. You don't need to transform overnight from silent observer to prolific poster. You just need to take one small, brave step toward visibility. The moment you stop hiding, everything shifts. Not because the world changes, but because your relationship with yourself changes. You remember that you have a right to exist, to speak, to be seen. You remember that your voice matters, even if it shakes. The world isn't watching as closely as fear suggests. Most people are too busy managing their own anxieties to scrutinize yours. Self-expression isn't exposure, it's connection, a bridge between your inner world and others who might understand. Here's your gentle challenge. Within 24 hours, post one honest thing without checking engagement. Or, if that feels too vulnerable, write it down, record it privately, or send it to one person who matters. Just don't stay silent. Even if no one else sees it, you will. And that simple act of witnessing yourself begins to change everything.